In terms of technology, the 1990s were wild. We had all the parts, but no idea how to use them. The graphics in video games that used to blow our minds look like sand paintings now. Now, we can fondly remember these things from the comfort of our new, shiny computers. In this video, we'll talk about some tech that blew our minds from that time. You may even be surprised at the results. First off, the video game graphics and controllers. Does Final Fantasy VII come to mind? The most crucial video game ever made came out in 1997 and blew everyone away. Remember that the 90s featured significant changes in video game graphics, as they were the beginning of the 3D graphics era. In the early 1990s, people started to explore the world of 3D by making things look like they were in 3D space. Popular games like Wing Commander, Doom, and Duke Nukem 3D used 2D textures and sprites to give players a fake 3D effect. But when Quake came out in 1996, millions worldwide would sit for hours in dimly lit rooms in front of their PCs or on a LAN with their friends. It was the first game to have enemies and entire 3D worlds. With ID Software's Quake engine and OpenGL, real-time 3D rendering was possible. This was a big step for the industry, and 3D graphics quickly improved by adding shaders, skeletal-based character models, and ragdoll physics. Up next, car phones. Our cars are where we did our first big dance with cell phones. Car phones were another very important technology for very important people. They either came in briefcases that had to be kept and charged in the car, or were installed right in the car. These were around long before the 90s, but the 90s were the end of a technology that seemed too cool and too far in the future right up until the end. You'd get a big transmitter unit in the trunk or under the dashboard, maybe an external antenna that said high roller inside. You'd also have to have a handset that lets you make big deals while driving your 7 Series LS400 or S-Class. But now, these phones collect dust and crumbs from fast food. They use power, take up space in the center console, and cause interference on the 800 MHz bands when turned on. When the car's time on the pavement's up, the old phone goes to the crusher, followed by hit clips. If you're a kid in the late 1990s or early 2000s, you probably remember hit clips. Hasbro's Tiger Electronics made slick micro audio systems called hit clips. These small chips looked like memory cards and held a 60-second clip of a popular song. This meant songs from artists like Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and Britney Spears. During the craze of the new millennium, these tiny, strange audio devices became very popular. They were small cartridges that looked like keychains and played 1-minute snippets of pop songs. The sound quality was so bad that it sounded like the songs were recorded inside a meat grinder. Did anyone care? Nope. Before MP3 players, these little players were so fantastic and small that every kid had to have one. They even made cute little boom boxes to put them in. Maybe this wasn't about learning music as it was about selling another cute gadget. Moving on to electronic diaries. You probably got an electronic diary if you wanted to feel tech savvy as a kid, but didn't need or have enough money for a Palm Pilot. These candy-colored deals in clamshells had nothing to offer. They saved names, addresses, dates, and other things, but the screen was so small and hard to use that it was easier just to write everything down. They also made them for adults, who probably found them useless and went back to writing things in a day planner, which is still the best way to do things, and always will be the best way to do something. Papyrus is the one tech trend that will never go away. The Magic Diary was the most advanced thing on the market when it came out. It had software that could store phone numbers and addresses, give users their horoscopes, and even let them design digital faces, preferably of their crushes. Next, Palm Pilots. When we talk about smartphones, let's take a moment to think about the Palm Pilot. The Palm Pilot was a brand new invention that changed the game in the 1990s. It was used by many very important business people and was the first handheld computer. It was a PDA, which stood for the Personal Digital Assistant. With the fancy stylus, you can keep track of the very important things in your life, but the game moves along fast. When you think about it now, the first Palm Pilots were about as futuristic as a parking meter. It didn't have a screen and only a few hundred kilobytes of memory. Kilobytes. If you have an 8GB phone right now, you have the same amount of memory as 16,000 Palm Pilots from the early 2000s. Not to mention beepers. People used to say beep me, which was fantastic. You knew someone was essential if they had a pager. They had to be reached at all times, but in an old-fashioned way. As someone paged them, they had to find a phone and call back. Now, even first graders walk around with fully functioning smartphones like they're waiting for a call from the president at any moment. Time is strange. Early pagers had no screen at all, only you knew what they meant by the sound or vibration vibration they made. Then came pagers with numbers and letters on them. The first type can only show strings of numbers, while the second type can show both numbers and letters. So futuristic. Some pagers could also send and receive messages. Let's learn more about 1998 iMac. Be honest, these things still look insanely cool. Why didn't the trend of gummy bear colored computers catch on? Did we fly too close to the sun? Maybe it's because you could fit 10 working computers from 2017 into one of its big, beautiful, bulbous chassis. One of the most famous computers ever made is the iMac G3. The iMac was a big step forward in many ways, including that it came in different colors or flavors like strawberry, blueberry, and Bondi blue. The keyboard and hockey puck mouse also went with the colors. It's crazy to think that there was nothing else like it at the time. All-in-one PCs had been around before, like the Compaq Portable from 1983, which wasn't very portable. The PowerPC 750 processor, also known as G3, was at the heart of the iMac. Intel chips are used in Macs now, but in 1998, Intel hadn't yet said it would switch to Intel. Motorola, IBM, and Apple got together in 1991 to make PowerPC. Coming up, Tamagotchis. During the 1990s, if you were in elementary school, you probably killed hundreds of pixelated monsters called Tamagotchis. These egg-shaped toys came from Japan and taught children important lessons about life, like how hard it is to be kind and caring, and that if you don't feed your pets, they'll grow wings and come back to haunt you. How fun. It was designed to change based on how the player took care of it. At real-time intervals, the device would beep, telling the player to feed, clean up after, or even punish the pet. A well-behaved adult Tamagotchi would be the result of good parenting, while a bad one would be the result of not paying attention. And just like a real animal, it died if you forgot about your Tamagotchi. In Japanese versions of the game, it would leave a tombstone. In American versions, it would say something about returning to its home planet. Finally, Talkboy. The Talkboy is a perfect example of technology from the 90s. It's big, old, and tied to a popular series from the 90s. It also has a payoff that was a great novelty at the time, but seems almost ancient now. It was just a videotape in a small player that you could use to record and play back your voice. But because Kevin McAllister used it in Home Alone 2, everyone had to have one. And to be honest, they kinda ruled back then. Kevin used the Talkboy the whole time in Home Alone 2. It was a pretty important part of the story. He recorded his Uncle Frank in the shower, and then he used that recording to make the hotel bellhop think his dad was in the shower. He made a recording of himself to book a room, but he slowed his voice down to make it sound like an adult. He also recorded Harry and Marv talking about their master plan to steal and gave the tape to the police. What would have happened if Kevin didn't have his Talkboy? He definitely wouldn't have gone very far. Don't forget that the Talkboy's cousin, the Yak Back, was more extraordinary and stylish, but the Yak Back could only record a short amount of sound, like a few seconds. It was the Vine of music toys in the 1990s. And on that note, that's a wrap for this video. Which of these devices do you think is the coolest? Would you like to see them make a comeback? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.